Hey everybody, Alan Waters, Director of Marketing, and thank you for those that are attending online. I will remind you if you're online, we can see your messages in the chat, but we cannot hear you physically in the room. So if you have anything you want to add, please throw that in there. Couple things that I want to bring up that I think at this point we're all aware of, but Women's Leadership Conference is next Thursday. If you want a ticket, you have until Marissa gets in the office at noon to do so. I think actually may already be on the waiting list. So that's exciting for us. It's just like this programming, we've got now at least one opportunity per month that is available virtually for those that cannot make it here in person at the chamber. That way people are still able to participate and get involved where they are. The next webinar we have is actually this next month, March 16th. It's going to be in partnership with our tourism department, as well as ITI Digital. There's so many acronyms and letters, but it is going to be focused on making sure that you know the process to get your Google business page fully up to date, the information needed there to keep that top of mind and relevant, as well as how that impacts your tourism profile and how it can impact other things like your chamber business profile, Bing MySpaces, etc. Because the more you have in one place, the more likely people are to connect with you and do business with you. For now, I want to turn it over to our sponsor with Brown Edwards to tell you a little bit about this program and himself.
Thank you, Alan. Appreciate the opportunity to just give you a brief introduction. I'm Jerry Donovan. I'm the Chief Growth Officer with Brown Edwards, and we're honored to be able to sponsor these workshops throughout the year and work with the chamber. These guys do a fantastic job in supporting this area. Brown Edwards, if I say accountants, what are your first thoughts?
Taxes.
Taxes, right? It's tax season, and right now you can't find a tax accountant anywhere because they're all at their desk working diligently to get your taxes done. But one of the things that we're working hard to try to do, Brown Edwards, based out of Roanoke, we have an office right across the other side of the mall, 13 offices in 3 states. We're actually in the top 60 in the nation from rankings through inside public accounting. We have the most number of CPAs in the state of Virginia working in Virginia as per Virginia business. And they don't all do taxes. And in fact, only about 40% of who we have there are actually tax focused. With that, revenue runs about 50%. We also do a lot of audit work on the audit side of things, where we have to come in and validate financial statements and that side of it. But beyond that, the firm and what we're trying to do, what we're working towards is being more of a, if you will, consulting type of operation. Lots of businesses need more things throughout the year now than they did just during tax season. So tax planning, tax consulting, but we're doing things like business valuation and transitioning that way. We have a lot of transitions that happen on that front. Working with growing companies from the back end client accounting services angle, which means bookkeeping, getting your accounts payable done, accounts receivable, working within the space on the IT front to make sure your financial systems are in place to be able to help accomplish what each company would want to do during that phase. We have experts in that side of things as well. We bring in groups to work with small business employers for their retirement plan services. And so consulting on retirement plan services, how to structure 401ks, we call it retirement plan administration, being able to look and see how that works within the tax strategy so that you're maximizing not only the benefits for your employees, but also for small business owners. So just a couple of different ideas about things that we're doing. And one of the things we like to share, as I'm doing here today, is to let everybody know we're more than just tax accountants. We're looking for growth in different ways and different strategies that's there. And so we appreciate the opportunity. We love the fact that you guys are learning on strategy and planning as a growth person. I spend my world, we were just talking about that, kind of thinking those thoughts in today's world is great opportunity and great challenge because things are happening so rapidly. So I'm sure you're going to learn a lot today. There are some swag goodies in the back there that I will give you just a 2-second overview there. Anybody watch Ted Lasso?
Yeah.
Okay. You'll notice a Ted Lasso theme there because it's Brown Edwards and we go by BE a lot. So the believe thing really struck to us. So there's some post-its in there, grab them, but I thought it was appropriate for today too. As you're looking to grow, one of the things I always link is you got to believe it first. You got to really think it and believe it. So I think for you, take some of those things and reminder, the little soccer balls, kind of cool. They're lip balms. Sorry for you folks online. You have to come by the chamber and talk to Alan. There'll be some leftovers here, but grab some of those and then remember BE if we can ever help you out. So thanks.
Thanks. Alan, thanks for bringing this together. So my name is Lois James. I'm with a company called OpX Solutions. And what that stands for is operational excellence. And so I'm going to use a lot of our experience in examples today when we talk about growth and planning, because we've gone through some changes in our own company. So operational excellence, we are based out of Roanoke, but we have offices now in Greenville, South Carolina, and in Savannah, Georgia. So we're growing as well. And so we like to come along beside companies, and the OpX Solutions, the solutions part of our company, is going in and really helping find solutions for those business challenges that anybody has. So project management, process improvement, leadership development, all those areas that we can help with any organization, because every organization has processes and every organization has leadership, right? So that's what we do. But I'm happy to answer more questions as we go through this. So we'll go ahead and get started. I will say that when you talk about strategic planning and growth, we can go down so many rabbit holes and talk about different things. So I'm trying to just kind of give a high level perspective. But as we go, I don't want you guys to wait until the end. If you have questions as we're going through, I'd rather you jump in at the moment, because that's when we're going to have the best conversation. Okay. And this is really about you. So please ask questions and let's have conversation as we go. And those of you online, please, keep Alan busy with the chat so you all can be involved as well. Okay. And I forgot my clicker today, so I'm going to be pushing a button. Okay. So here we are. Strategic growth and planning. I should have had that on when I was introducing myself. Sorry, that's how we go. That's how we roll. All right. So our session objectives today, what I'd really like to get out of this, and I hope you do as well, is clarifying our strategic direction. Okay, what does that mean? Identifying 3 to 5 growth opportunities or priorities for you individually. And whether you're the decision maker, the owner of your own business, you are involved in that strategic planning, regardless of what level you are in your company. Okay, we're going to convert strategy into measurable goals. And we're going to talk about establishing ownership and accountability of those goals and of the planning and the growth that you have for your company. Okay. All right. So the first one is why strategic growth matters. What does that mean? First of all, what does strategic growth even mean? Should look right at Jerry for that one. What comes to mind when you say strategic growth?
Intentional.
Intentional. Yeah, that's good. I know. I thought I had those, so they were not. You didn't see all of them.
Accidental.
I know. Sorry about that. They're supposed to come in one by one, and something's not. It didn't work. So, and you can see by the definition there, it's a long-term plan for expanding a business's revenue, customer base, or market presence. So whenever you say strategic growth or planning, you're really just planning. What does our future look like? And how are we going to get there? Okay. So that's why, as Samantha said, it's intentional. Growth is intentional. Now you might get lucky every now and then and hit something that just takes off and you had really no idea. And there's a couple companies that has happened with, and we can talk about that. But for the majority of us, it's going to be intentional. We need to come up with a strategy and a plan to get where we want to go, right? And without direction, activity replaces achievement. Okay, do I have any basketball fans in here? College basketball? Do you know who John Wooden? You ever heard of him? Yeah, okay. So back in the day, UCLA basketball coach, and he won like 11 NCAA championships. He was a phenomenal basketball coach. And once he finished there, he went into leadership development and was very well known in that area. And one of the things that he said, and it's always stuck with me, is do not mistake activity for achievement. Okay, so think about that for a minute. Don't mistake activity for achievement. Do you guys ever have those days that you're like, go, go, go all day long, all day long? And at the end of the day, you're exhausted. And then you sit back and you go, okay, what did I actually accomplish today? Right? I call that the hamster wheel. Okay, because we can be busy. We can have that activity and we can be going all day long. But if we don't have direction and we don't have a plan and we don't have priorities in place, we're just doing activities. And a lot of times those activities are things that we think, okay, I'll just do this and get it over with so that I can get on to what I really need to do. And then what happens is we spend so much time over here that we never get to what we really need to be working on. Right? So that's what I mean by that is don't mistake activity for achievement. When you plan your days, you want to make sure what you're doing in that day is working towards what you want to accomplish that day. So at the end of the day, you can say, yes, I got it done. Not, what did I get done today? Big difference. Okay. And strategy aligns people, purpose, and performance. So I can't tell you how many companies I've gone in and worked with where everybody's kind of in their own area and everybody's siloed from each other and everybody thinks they're doing what they should be doing, which technically they are. But if they're not talking to each other, I'm sure you're shaking your head, you see this too, right? If you're not talking to each other, you're not aligned. Is this department really working towards what the ultimate goal is? And how does this, what they're doing, and is what they're doing help the other, your internal customers, your other departments within your company? Or if you have a small company, are the people doing what they need to do to be aligned with what the company policies are? So when you have strategy, you have all of that spelled out so that everybody's working towards the same goal. Make sense? Okay, so any questions so far on that? You guys jump in. If you're like, yep, I see it all the time. You see it when you work with your clients.
Oh, well, no, that's just common across industries,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
Google, anybody.
Right. I agree. I see it across industries too. And I think people get misguided. I'm not sure misguided is the right word, but they think they're doing the right thing because, hey, I'm coming to work, I'm doing my job, I'm getting things done. But if what you're doing is not in alignment with what the overall company strategy is, you're on that hamster wheel.
Yeah, you have to constantly go back to your value, right? Your value set, your purpose, and talk to everybody.
Yes. And communication, this is where I'm saying we could go. So communication, I could do an entire workshop just on communication. So that's why it's an overarching what we're doing today, but we'll touch on those things. Okay. So really we want to look and say, what does growth mean for our organization in the next 3 years? Bless you.
Thank you.
Right? Whether you've been around 30 years or 3 years, what do we want to get accomplished in the next 3 to 5 years? That's what we're talking about today. Okay. All right. So when we start talking about these things, change really begins with leadership. And this is where I could probably spend 2 hours because this is what I love to do is work with leadership development within companies. But before you can do or implement any type of strategy or growth within your organization, you have to make sure that your leadership is on board. And one of the very first steps is that you have to look at yourself. At whatever level in the organization you are, you cannot lead and manage other people until you can lead and manage yourself. Okay, so that's another area of just making sure that you're in alignment with what's going on, but you've got to have leadership on board. you know, if you are part of, and Jerry, you can probably jump in on this, if you are part of a bigger corporation and you've got these corporate people in another, maybe even another country, but in another state that are making all the corporate goals that we have to work towards, if you don't filter that down and you don't have it, you don't have your people in alignment with that. So your leadership has to be in alignment with whatever goals you have set for your growth. Does that make sense? Have you guys ever been in a situation where that's been a struggle? I hear lots of mm-hms. Okay. So leadership, this is really important. And once you do, and we'll get to it, when you set your strategic goals and where you want to be 3 years from now, you have to have leadership involved. Because if you don't have leadership involved to drive the bus towards that, you're not going to get there. Okay. So real growth begins with the leadership. And this last bullet, results improve when people improve. Okay. This is another area that I think a lot of people overlook, in that, you know, I'll go in and talk with companies and they're really big on investing in, so we do a lot of work with manufacturing. So, you know, I'll go in and they're investing in new technology, new machinery, all these things to help their processes. And then my next question is always, well, what about your people? Are you investing in your people at the same rate that you're investing in your technology? Because if you don't invest in your people and they don't know how to run these new machineries or this technology, that's your sustainability is not going to happen. So you've got to focus on your people for any type of growth to be successful. Would you all agree with me on that one? Good.
Yeah.
Any comments, questions?
Okay, so that is so dumb to me that people don't get that. It's like, so, right, I went to a leadership educational development thing at the Wharton School of Business at UVA one time.
Mm-hmm.
And they asked that question, like, what do the top leaders do that everybody else doesn't? Nobody could answer that question except for me. And I learned that from my dad working at Lynchburg Foundry.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I was amazed that all these people that were leading school systems could not answer that question.
Yeah, to take care of your people.
Yeah.
And to invest in your people
Right.
first. It's amazing
To
to
me, it was
do.
right. Like, that's fundamental. And like, they're not doing it. That's like, what?
And
That
what
makes
is
no sense.
What is the first area in a budget to be cut when we have to trim the fat?
Market raises.
Yeah, is your people, or developing your people, or training, or training, right? I mean, constantly, and especially Jerry and I were talking before we started this morning, that how quickly things change in today's world. If you don't keep up, you're going to be left behind. So if you don't invest in your people for training to be able to be at the highest level that they can possibly be, you're missing the boat.
I have been in a situation before I started my business where I was a practice manager in dentistry, and the company itself was growing pretty quickly. And I think that clouded the owner's kind of views a little bit. I would use the term cocky in a way.
Yeah.
And so I was on the opposite end where I was very in an intimate relationship with my practice itself. And things were filtering down that didn't align with what the practice needed. And I guess I wasn't heard in what we needed. And so I think he kind of forgot. He had this overall goal, but wasn't paying attention to how it individually hurt each practice.
Absolutely. And I see that so often. I call it the theory versus reality. When you have the people at the upper level making all these decisions, because in theory it should work this way. When in reality, the people who are actually doing it, this is where you need to be getting your information from, because they're the ones who are actually implementing and doing it, right?
I was told to stay in my lane and reply with a hearty yes, sir.
And how did that work out? Exactly, because that's what happens, especially if somebody is having a lot of growth and success. Wonderful, but you've got to manage that success. And if you're not taking care of the people who are making you successful, it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
It's truly not.
Let me ask for our nonprofit members and that line, where you may be working more with volunteers and the challenge starts to become people and bandwidth. How do you think and factor that in when you're looking at this strategic growth piece of investing in the people?
Great question. And when you have volunteers, it's more challenging to get those people to retain them, I guess is the way I'm trying to say it, because Jamie had a paycheck. So, you can put up with a lot of stuff because you're getting a paycheck. When you have volunteers and you have a very thin staff, you have to be very creative on what is in it for them. What are they benefiting from by being here and helping us with our mission, right? So is that recognition? Is it, sometimes like it might be volunteering for, I think of the Southwest Virginia Food Bank in Roanoke, and they have a lot of companies that come in and volunteer for them. And so they get, from their company, they get the opportunity to go, okay, you can go work at the food bank, things like that. So what is in it for them to benefit to be there? And it might be recognition, it might be, time off of work, it might be, it depends. But that's a great question. Does anybody else have an idea for that? How do you keep them involved?
I mean, obviously, if they're volunteering, there's a reason. They have a passion. They've been led there to volunteer for a reason. And it's like you need to hone in on what that passion is and pour into that. So if you need to find the reason why they're there and focus on that. And make sure that they're still enjoying it as they're doing it.
Right. So finding people's strengths, and this is whether they're on a volunteer basis or in your own organization, is what do people like to do? Like you said, there's a reason they're there volunteering. What is it that they like to do? If it's, filling the boxes with the food and helping on that end, or is it actually delivering the food to people? Find out what people like to do and encourage that. Because people are going to do a better job and be more engaged if they're doing what they like to do, not what somebody else tells them to do. Good point. I like that.
Kristen in the chat said Jesse Cole's Fans First has great tips for how to inspire people to be your fans, whether they're employees, customers, or team members. What can you do to go one step above what they expect?
Ooh. What was that again? Jesse Cole's?
Jesse Cole's Fans First.
I'm gonna make a
That's
note.
Savannah Banana.
He's the Savannah Banana.
Okay, that makes sense. And look what he's done.
Yeah.
I mean,
Anyone can give me a ticket.
yeah. Isn't that the truth? That's true. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, so then we start talking about vision and strategic direction, right? So vision is what we talk about. What is 3 to 5 years out? You don't, in today's changing market, you don't want to go more than 5 years out because it's going to be a completely different world in 5 years. Okay. So when we talk about vision, don't get it confused with mission and strategy. Okay. So mission is why we exist. If you have a mission, that's why you exist. Do you guys know what your mission statement is for your company? Most people do. I was going to say, the chamber has it right there on the wall in big letters.
You had asked, I was like,
right? So the chambers, our mission is to promote a positive environment for the growth and operation of business and education of our members. That's why Montgomery County Chamber of Commerce exists. That's their mission, right? Makes sense. Our vision is what we're building. That's what we want to build. So in the coming years, what is our vision? And our strategy is how we get there. So we know why we're here. Our vision is where we want to go. And our strategy is how we get there. Okay. So when you think of 3 to 5 years out, what does success look like for you 3 to 5 years from now? You know, Jamie, you're a growing company. What does it look like 3 years from now? Do you want to double your capacity? Do you want to bring on more people? There's all different drivers for that, but thinking about where do you want to be 3 to 5 years? And you can't just do this, you know, in 5 minutes when I put you on the spot and ask you a question. This is something you have to think about and really, you know, you might have to talk to investors. You might have to talk to your accountants, depending on what your company is. Okay. So that's our vision and our strategic direction. So some of our growth drivers might be, so different industries have different reasons or what they're striving to do. You know, are you wanting to grow your revenue? Is that what success looks like for you in 3 to 5 years? Is more revenue, or is it operational excellence? Do you have an established company, but you just need to work on some of your operations and your procedures, and let's get a little bit better at what we already do? Market expansion. This is one thing that I was talking about with my company, OpX Solutions. We started in Roanoke, Virginia, and our founder, sold the business at the end of 24. And so we are expanding. The new owner, Peter, lives in Savannah, Georgia. So this was a very big change for us, that instead of just concentrating in the Roanoke and New River Valley area, we are now Greenville, South Carolina, down to Savannah, Georgia. So that's our market expansion. Talent development, that goes back to, you know, do the people in our organization know how to do what we want them to do in order to grow? Okay. Innovation or customer experience. We work with a client right now in Atlanta, and that is their number one is customer experience. How can we make our customer experience even better than what it is today? And what does that mean? And who needs to be involved in that? Do we need to introduce new product? Do we need to make the product that we have better? Do we want to, you know, whatever it is to make our customer experience better? Okay. So what else? Is there anything else that you all can think of that would be a driver for strategic planning and growth for you or for anybody?
I mean, in my head, this sounds silly, but I just wrote down social media reach.
Yes.
Because I'd say 75% of my inquiries come through
Perfect
social media, and it is kind of driving a lot for people in marketing right now. So like we were talking about pouring into what your people do best and what they love. I've got a younger, she's getting ready to turn 19 employee who is really kind of like has an itch for like the TikTok world.
Right.
And she has asked if she could expand our reach in that area and start, and I said, run with it. I don't want to do it. I don't know how to do it. You do it.
Yeah.
And so she has been promoted to our content creator, and she is really enjoying it.
Exactly what I'm talking about.
And so that's kind of on our list to see how far she can run with that. And even if that doesn't lead growth for us, like in clientele, it can become something where we can teach through TikTok and kind of provide skills or how-tos for people who can't afford to, pay for our services. So
Right. And helping to brand and get your name out there, and absolutely.
When you're
Online
looking at this, I think about like some of our when you're a new business owner and the mindset becomes, well, I have to make money to exist. How do you talk to someone and ask them to look through this on the lens of there's a difference between need and want, and also it's the same as like everyone could be your customer, but that's not who your target is. So how do you suggest someone look at this and go, I can only choose 3. That doesn't mean the others don't still happen.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because all of these kind of work together. But if you try to do all of them, you're going to be on that hamster wheel, because you're not going to get anything done, because you're watered down and your focus is not in any one place. So mine, and jump in for a new business owner, I think the best thing to do is to look out 1 year from now. 3 years may be a little intimidating, but for a brand new business, look 1 year from now. What does success mean a year from now? And in order to get there, what do we have to do? Of course, we have to make money. But in order to make money, what do we need to do? Would you add to that?
I mean, I think that's where a lot of people get sidetracked between growth or strategic growth and the tactical planning that goes with that. So I love the point of just zero in on those things that you can do in the short term strategically to help that business exceed, right? Because some of the things that you talk about are then what are the activities, those tactics that you have to do this. An example on our end is we just went through a process of identifying our ideal client profiles, which you would think, well, you kind of know who your client should be. It's anybody that would pay you, right? But if that's the case, you could be trading a lot of time and effort and lower dollars for the same or potentially less time and effort for greater dollars. Right. So, and particularly in the activity, the hamster wheel types of things, helping to find those things as part of what you want that particular growth driver to be, are key in my opinion, as you're going through the process. So I'm sure you're going to talk about going through the process. And a lot of people get sidetracked on the activity and they forget the growth driver. And so define that really tight at the beginning. And then the other part of this that I see is it's not a static thing. Right. You know what the vision is, you know where you want to be, but there's always these things that just drop in constantly. Yeah. And so you have to be able to have that, people, the corporate terms, pivot or be nimble or all of those things. But you're having to stay within that same framework of what you're looking at.
Yeah. And I tell people too, you don't know what you don't know. So when you first start, you don't know what's going to happen. So you have to kind of build in, and we're going to get to that in a minute. But I think one of the most important things, and we will talk about it, is the handout that I sent, is when we focus in and we have a goal. And one of the most important things when we set a goal for what do we want to be like in a year from now is not to get wrapped up in what I call the hows. How am I going to get there? Right? We'll think about that in a minute. You have to think about where you want to be. Where do you want to be? That's your goal. And then we'll talk about how are we going to get there. That's the planning piece. Okay.
One of the other, what else in the chats was growing our audience base, aka our village. It's not about revenue growth, but about educating the community with a compound effect.
So, and love that too. So it's the same basis, no matter what it is, you have to define. So if it's an audience base or a customer base, and I know I keep saying we'll get to it, you have to know where you're starting from in order to know where you want to go. So if you have 100 clients right now, you want to get to 500 clients. You gotta I know Jamie. It can happen. It can happen. And there's so many examples we can talk about in a minute, how quickly some of these things grew, like Dropbox and it was Uber. They grew like overnight, but they were able to sustain the growth because they looked at what was coming. So, yeah.
Lois, do you think,
Yeah.
when we think about strategic growth drivers, there's that axis, maybe it's more common in engineering businesses, but
Mhm.
you could have quality, speed, or price, pick two.
Yes.
And when you do that, you're kind of defining where you want to be with your strategy.
Yes.
You don't want to necessarily be a race to the bottom for price, or if you do, you want to do it better than anyone else with operational excellence.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Going back to what Jerry said, you have to decide, are you willing to give up a little bit of quality to be the fastest? Okay.
Yeah.
But see, that's one of your defining drivers. If you refuse to compromise quality, then it's going to take a little bit longer. But then you appeal to your customers that way, that, hey, I may not get it done tomorrow, but it's going to get done well.
Well, and I use that example sometimes when I'm like completing a walkthrough and they're like, okay, well, when can you get my deep clean in? And I'm like, in 6 weeks. And they say, wait, what? And I'm like, if someone referred you to a fantastic hairdresser, would you wait to have a great experience?
Right.
Or would you want someone who has, and I always say, come think about it. If they have immediate openings, you need to think why.
Why?
If they're busy,
Exactly.
you need to say why.
Exactly. It's the same with a restaurant. I use that example all the time. This restaurant has a 45-minute wait. This one you can get a seat right away.
Why? Yeah. There's a reason why someone's busy.
Right.
So
So do you
and most of the time my clients actually want to wait.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't, then it kind of like filters it out for me anyway.
Exactly. Which goes back to what Jerry was talking about.
Yeah.
Is that it right. And we do the same thing in my business. There are people that don't view business strategies the same way we do. So it's a conflict that we would not be good partners because we're going to do the quality thing and they want to do the fast way.
Yeah.
And so it's not an ideal client for us. So we end up either doing it and getting frustrated and it wasn't worth the money for the time and effort that we put into it.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's just hard to say no.
It is.
Particularly having started small businesses and you're thinking, you gotta keep the lights on, you gotta make people, you gotta be able to say,
right.
it's hard to say no. And sometimes as a startup, you kind of just have to do things because you gotta have cash flow.
Right.
But that doesn't define your strategy and your growth, right? And so it's that, and again, looking at it through that lens, you have to have that discernment around, okay, when is the right one to take and be frustrated and deal because you got cash flow if you're trying to bootstrap something along the way.
Right.
Versus when you're talking about a corporate environment where you can more easily, or even a growth where you've had some growth for some years behind you, where you can more easily say, that doesn't align with who I am. And it's really going to cost me more than it's going to benefit me.
And I went through that. Like in the beginning, I said yes to everything and I broke my back over it. But now I'm finally in a position where I don't need every inquiry that comes through.
Right.
And that's a great place to be, I feel like.
Yes.
We all want a wait list.
The constant
Yeah.
yes also helps determine what that cost factor for me would be of this is how much you have to spend before I'm willing to deal with it.
Oh,
Because there are some clients that
Yeah.
I could still absolutely say, well, if you're paying this amount, they may be a nightmare to work with, but that check clear.
well, I mean,
Yes.
that's every summer time for me when they're like, come flip our frat house for the next school year. And I'm like, yes, I will do that, but your rate just went up like
Yeah.
$15 more.
Please provide.
Or
Right.
yeah, oh, let me go buy a hazmat suit, which we've done, but I had to do that. But it's also like when someone calls me and they're like, I'm in a pinch, I need a same day, I have to have this done tomorrow, and I say, I can absolutely make that work for you, but there's a surge charge.
Absolutely.
And do I want to do it? I hate doing last minute things because I'm not prepared, but if sometimes it's worth it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great conversation, you guys. Love it. So when we start, So this is what we were just talking about. You really have to take a look at and assess where you are currently, whether it's a brand new company or, you know, you've been around for a while. You have to really be honest with yourself and say, okay, where are we today? Right? Where are we today in order to get where we want to go a year from now or 3 years from now? Okay, so looking at your financials, we just talked about that. If you need the money and you really need, you're going to make some decisions based on that to get you through the next year, right? But where are you? If you're pretty set financially, then what are the other indicators that you need to look at? But, you know, your market position or your operational capacity. You know, if you all of a sudden got 500 clients, you don't have the manpower, woman power, people power to make that happen, right? So that's part of that operational capacity and leadership capacity. So it's really important that you look at where you are right now. You have to assess before you can grow and plan strategically. You've got to know what your starting point is, your baseline. Okay. And sometimes when we do that, I know it, okay, I missed a
Swapped.
It's okay. No, it's okay. We'll go right into this. When you look at our vision, okay, vision is where we want to go 3 years from now, right? So if we have our vision and we minus or take away our current reality, that gives us what we call our strategic gap. This is what we're planning. This is our strategic growth, is that gap between where we are right now and what our vision is a year, 3 years. That's our strategic gap. So that's what we focus on to plan for. How are we going to close that gap between where we are and where we want to be? What are some things that we need to do to close this gap? Are there things that we need to stop doing? Are there things that we need to start doing? You know, and I keep going back to Jamie's example, but, you know, at some point you have to start saying no, where you were saying yes to everybody. And that wasn't helping you get where because you were burned out and not making the progress. That's the hamster wheel. It's good in a way because you've got the money coming in, but you're burned out and don't have the capacity on the other end.
Well,
Right?
it was worth it in the beginning because it helped me be able to build a team because I had the finances coming in.
Right.
But eventually I had to control potential burnout.
Right. Absolutely. And that's part of this. So what are some things, when you look at that, what are some things that we have to stop doing? Saying yes to everybody. What are some things that we need to start doing? Deciding who we say no to. Okay. Does this make sense? So that strategic gap, that's what we want to close to get to where we want to be. Okay. So this goes back to what we talked about earlier, is we need to have that focus principle. And this was back to what Alan had read from somebody earlier. If you have all these things that you're trying to do and all these things that you're trying to accomplish, you're doing so many things that you're not being successful at any of them. Have you ever felt that way? That your list is this long and you're trying to get so much done that you're really not doing anything well. Okay, so what we need to do is talk about and say, what are our priorities? What are the things that we have to do first? What are the things we have to do second and third to get there? So what I'm trying to get you to do is to narrow down your focus, to narrow down your strategic gap. Because there's a lot of things that you can do. Let's pick the high priorities first. Okay, so an example, when Peter took over OpX Solutions, and a priority was to get Greenville, South Carolina up and running. Okay, so what I had to do as leadership development is I had to make sure we hired somebody in that area and got them onboarded and trained to be able to, facilitate some of our leadership development in that area. So for me, a strategic gap, right now, we had nobody in Greenville, but our vision was to have our Greenville office up and running within 6 months. So I had to stop doing some of the things that I was doing here and start focusing on hiring somebody and getting them onboarded for Greenville. So my priorities changed because I was strategically planning to make Greenville an open office. Does that make sense? So my priorities had to change from what I was currently doing to finding somebody and getting them up and going. Okay. So when you're looking at where you want to be, what are some of your priorities? Can you think of anything that might be a priority for you right now that you want to focus in on to close some of those gaps of where you want to be? I'm putting you on the spot, I know.
I know for a fact that I have to build a third team.
Okay.
It's been knocking for 6 months now. And I just know that it's gonna be painful. But after the new year hit, I probably had 15 inquiries for potential new clients, and I can't expand. Like my 2 teams that I have now are maxed out. And so it means that I'm gonna have to make myself vulnerable to hiring again, which is very traumatizing for me because I've had some issues. And so putting myself out there to do that again is scary, but.
Okay, so for you specifically, if you've got this young person who is now going to go out there on social media, you need to be ready for the incoming business as a result of that.
Yeah.
So your priority needs to get that third team, right? Look at it through a different lens in that, is there somebody on your team that you would feel comfortable with hiring that third team, so it's not you having to do that?
I do that now. I do delegate that out.
Okay.
For instance, I don't mean to talk too much, but the second team that I had, each team has a team lead, and she had a turnover teammate. And so I always do virtual interviews first, but then I let them come in and do what I do as a working interview. Because some people have it in their brain what we do, and then they get in it and they're like, oh, this is not what I thought. So
Which I think you could say across a lot of industries, correct?
I think working interviews, I would encourage that for anyone. It's been very good for me because you do a vibe check. You're going to spend your whole week with this person. You need to make sure that just the 30 minutes that you saw on Zoom, you need to spend the day with them.
Right.
So anyways,
Agreed.
I had the team lead. Actually, I delegated it. I was there for moral support throughout the day, but I put on my headphones and I went to work, and I let that team lead spend the day with this person, go through the whole day with them, and say, you decide.
Right.
You're going to be the one, running this team with this person. And so I do delegate that out, and it has been nice. It takes some pressure off of me. Of course, she was like, I have to decide. I'm like, yeah, you gotta break somebody's heart, but this is part of having that leadership role. This is part of being the team lead, is you get to have this autonomy to make this decision, which of course helps our culture because it makes her feel
empowered.
Yes.
Yep. These are all those things we could spend hours on all of those things, and it's that theory reality. She's the one that's going to have to work with this person. So would it be better for her to get the good vibe or for you? Because she's working with her on a daily basis. Right. So those are the kinds of things that we're talking about. So when you think about this strategic gap, right? Where you want to go. What are 2, 3? I would not do more than 5 because then you're watered down. 3 is a great number. What are 3 of your priorities that you need to do? This is where we're getting into our how we're going to accomplish it. So your priorities, what are some things? And like Jerry mentioned earlier, there are things that you're not even going to know yet, right? You don't know what you don't know until you get into it and start doing it. And you might have to make some changes. I think the word pivot got overused so much. Everybody like cringes when they hear the word pivot, but it really is. You might get into it and you think, okay, this is not working. We're going to have to take a different track. And that is okay because you don't know until you try. All right. So any questions on narrowing it down to about 3 priorities, 3 focal points that you need to work on to get to where you want to go?
I have a question. What is
Sure.
okay, so as a startup, right? Everybody heads for DoD because they have money. But like, what if you really want to do that? Like, how do you, right? How do you kind of do that? Right? Like, what's your guts? Like, okay, I really kind of want to do this, but right, this is where everybody goes for the money. How do you?
So is it, how do you do it strategy versus heart?
You think you're describing niche. How do you want to niche yourself
Mm-hmm.
and not follow the herd?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Be a specialist at health and human services.
Is that what you mean? Is that?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
For a startup is
Right, like a priority, right? You've got priorities, right?
Mhm.
But then you got your gut, and your gut's kind of telling you,
Mhm.
right? So how do you? Because those two things have to be aligned to be good. So
They do, but you
help me wiggle through that.
and I'm terrible at that wiggle because I am
too.
personally, I am one of those people that feel like we don't trust our gut and our intuition enough and we follow the herd. And sometimes that's not the best route. But if you are a startup company and you need that financial backing to get started, sometimes you're going to have to do some things that may not feel right, but you need that financial backing. Maybe it's 1 investor versus 5 investors. Maybe it's, is that along the lines of what you're talking about?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
If I can give a plug here for some of the partners.
Yes, please.
This makes me think last year on our Business 101 series where we sat down and thought about the research that goes into a startup. So partnering with Town of Christiansburg, Miles Campbell is our Small Business Solutions Manager. Town of Blacksburg, Angie is our Business Solutions Manager. SBDC, Anthony Grafsky, and then Regional Commission, they all have different ways that they can pull some of that research and some of that market to help you determine, well, I don't have the historical backing to logically say my gut is backing what I'm thinking. They can at least help you pull and find what some of that is locally.
Right.
Nationally, I cannot help you. But local partners and those that might impact.
Yes.
That in research is much more powerful than I thought when I started as a business owner.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll say from experience, just because I have to listen to him sit on calls. Anthony's my husband, and I have listened to him multiple times question some people's ideas, not to be, he says, not to feel like I'm stepping on your dreams here, but let's be realistic.
Mhm.
Is this something that is a need in your community? Are you going to have a target? Do you see the need? And I've heard him
Yeah.
And some people are like, no, you're right. Like, it's not going to work.
But that's where that research comes in
Yeah.
because, and why try to recreate the wheel when we have these incredible professionals who know they're the experts?
Well,
Take advantage of it.
for people that don't know, the Small Business Development Center is a free service.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, if you are tinkering with an idea, call them, set up a consult. And the whole time he it's not just Anthony, there's other people, but the
Mhm.
whole time they're supporting you, it's free, right?
Yeah, great services. Thank you for bringing that up. I agree with that. So, any questions on understanding that you have to get to one or two priorities, right? So then what do we do with those priorities? All right, we make a goal. And that was where I had Alan send out, but I'll pass this around to you guys. So you have to convert those priorities into a SMART goal, right? Has anybody, the acronym for, thank you, Smith. SMART, right? So specific, measurable. You can either do attainable or aligned, realistic, and a lot of times the T is the time frame, but we like to call it tangible. So when are you going to know when you hit that goal? How do you know that you hit your goal? So you have to take your priority and turn it into a goal. Because this is your how. These are your action steps to make this priority happen. Okay, so for my example, my SMART goal was to establish a facilitator in the Greenville market by February 1st. That was my SMART goal. Now you see, I didn't say how I was going to do that. It was just, what is my end goal? What do I want to accomplish? Actually, you're going to say something.
Did it happen?
Yes. Thank you.
We imagine this whole time.
No, it didn't work. No, absolutely it did. In fact, she started her new class on Tuesday. So it was awesome. So what you want to do is, and I brought these along so that you can walk through it, and we can walk through it just real quickly together, because I know I love it. We've had more conversation than I thought, so this is really good. But this is something that I do with all of my clients, all of our participants in every program that we have, is helping them set a SMART goal. And one of the great things is that this works in our personal lives the same way it works in our professional. Because I'm also a big advocate that I don't really like that well-balanced life, because I think that's an overused term as well. I like to say blended, because for those of us like me who work out of my house, it's blended. My professional and my personal life gets blended quite a bit. But what you want to do in this first section is, what is your priority? What is your goal that you want to make happen? Okay. Mine was to have a facilitator up and going in Greenville by February 1st. You always have to have a date on there. I want to have a third team up and going by whatever date. Is it realistic? Is it attainable or aligned with what your business strategy is? Absolutely. Okay, so you can have this for each one of your priorities, is using this goal sheet. Okay, so the next section is to really help you figure out, what are the benefits? Why am I even doing this? Why is this my priority? Convince yourself, write it down, write it out. We're visual. In the world of computers, our brains still go back to actually physically writing things out. We retain information more that way. So what are the benefits for you to hit this SMART goal? For me, we've got Greenville up and going. So now my next goal is, I've got to find some more clients in that area. So then I'll pull this out, and it's my next goal. It's my next priority that I'm working on. I'm closing that gap. Okay, down at the bottom, this is what Jerry said too. What are some obstacles? And what are some possible solutions to this? Some things are going to happen that I don't even know are going to happen. I don't know the Greenville area that well. So if I'm interviewing somebody, I don't know the geography down there. That was an obstacle to me, is not knowing the geography. What's a solution? Gosh, just get on there and start looking around, get on the computer and plug in some areas, the suburbs and things like that. So what are some obstacles that might come up? And what are some possible solutions to it? Okay. And then on the back, this is where I really think this is the meat and potatoes. These are the action steps. What are all the things that you have to do to make this goal happen? Right? And so you can free form and just kind of write things down. For me, hiring somebody in Greenville, I had to first come up with a job description of what my expectations were. Then I had to start researching different areas, like was I going to find a headhunter? Was I going to go through Indeed? How was I going to find some people who might be interested in being a facilitator with us? Then I had to do the whole onboarding and training. Okay? So all the things that it's going to take, these are your action steps. And you always want to put a target date with them. Now, this is also where you're going to come back, and when things get dropped in that you don't know about, you're going to have to make some adjustments here because you don't know what's going to happen until you start doing it. So it's better to make adjustments on your action steps. These are your hows that I was talking to. How am I going to accomplish this goal? So you might have to make adjustments. You might have to adjust your timeline. That's okay. You don't know until you start doing it. It's better to make adjustments because if your goal is still to hire somebody in Greenville, which it is, then I might need to make some adjustments. Right? Any questions on that? Because that's the biggest part of this form to get you going. Who needs to know about this goal? Why do we tell people about goals that we're working on? Two reasons. Accountability. Yep. Because when you speak it, you give it life and you put it out there, and now other people know, and it holds you accountable. But the second reason, which I love even better, is people want to support you on your goal. How many people, when I put my goal out there, they're like, Lois, I have a friend in Greenville. You need to reach out to her and she'll get you in touch with the chamber down there and blah, blah, blah. When you tell people about your goals, they want to help you. They want to support you and help you achieve your goals. So think about, who do you need to tell about the goal that you're working on?
Is there the opposite to that sometimes?
Yes.
Because I think of a situation where there's someone I've already actually texted and been like, hey, we should look at this. And then after you and I look at this, we'll bring it to the others. Because if I bring it to the others first, it can get bogged down in that, well, this is my thought, versus if we're aligned, then I think what I said was, let's get aligned before we go to the rest of the boat and ask them to row.
Yes. Absolutely. And I agree with that wholeheartedly, Alan, because what happens when you're working on a goal, and again, I'm giving you the bird's eye view. If you came to one of my workshops on this, it's all about, it's personal. This is, hit my mic friend. This is personal to you. Okay. And if your goal is personal to you, you're more likely to achieve it. If I wrote out my goal and I went over and I handed it to Alan and said, okay, here, he's going to be like, okay, because it's not his goal. He's not invested in it. So absolutely, you have to come up with it first. But then it goes back, and what I was going to talk about here is that goal cascade is once you do it at an organizational level. So when we're talking about strategic planning and growth, when you do it at an organizational level, then you have to cascade it down to the department, to the team, and to the individual, because that's where we get rid of those silos. Everybody has to be online, aligned. So if organization makes a goal for a strategic plan, and all my clients do that, everybody has goals at the beginning of the year that they want to reach by the end of the year. How do you narrow it down to the individual so they have a part in it as well? One of the biggest reasons goals don't happen in corporate America, where it's so big, is it never gets down to the team and the individual level, and they don't even know what that they're supposed to be working on something, right? Yes,
There's also,
please.
there's also, well, particularly, not knowing your situation. But when you work with an organization too, depending upon what your level of management responsibility is,
Mhm.
that you may be. We run into this, you may be tasked with creating part of the vision, and part of what the goal is, but there has to be alignment at multiple layers. From an executive board level down to other types of EDs to other folks that are around this.
Absolutely.
And so you're in that role to help create that. So to your point, it's a great point, but that's creating the leadership part and the leadership alignment first. So in an organizational part on the cascade.
Mhm.
Your
No,
thoughts on
please.
that, but it's, in your role in running an organization where there's other leadership, sometimes you have to get the alignment first, you get the right people here, then you take it there, and then it cascades down to the individual, to be able to make all of that work together for good.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I could like that too, to make sure that there is transparency for the individual. I know this is what we did it when I was with Onward, and something that I plan to do with this strategic plan with our team now is the strategic plan defines the goals and objectives for our department, our
Right.
team. That's kind of blended a little bit. But then from there, I'll take that and break it down for each individual team player
Yes.
and create a annual plan of work and responsibilities for that each individual person. And again, communicate and make sure we're transparent. Whenever you achieve these goals for you as an individual, that will help us achieve the greater goals for the organization, which achieves the greater goals
Yes.
for the region.
Yes.
So
Bingo.
that's part of my plan with our strategic plan, is making sure that that is clear and transparent for all of us as a team, myself included.
And what does that do, Samantha, when you do that? When you get it to that individual level, it empowers them, because then they're not just going through the motions and, oh, this is what I have to do today, but they realize it can't go to the next level until I do my piece. So in order for the bigger to be successful, I have to get my part done. And how empowering is that? That it comes down to you. We need your input. We need your help to get this part of the goal accomplished, so that the next level can get theirs done, up. So everybody enjoys that success. It works, and that transparency, and that's what we didn't have years ago, when people at the top just said, you do this is your job, and just do it. Don't ask why. Right? Thank God those days are over. And that's why. So I love that that's the approach that you're taking, and this is why. And that's how you're going to get the success on the bigger level.
And I feel like too, whenever you have it that way, depending on how you're funded and how that revenue is coming in, you have some deliverables that you can then present to the folks that are supporting you, to show that you are being good stewards of that investment. And in turn, kind of going back to it, don't get to the weeds of the how, but as you do that, then you can see that revenue grow, because they can trust you and know that you're being held accountable for the goals that you set forward.
And you're in alignment. You're in alignment with what they're doing. You're not in that silo over here just chugging along, stamping and doing what you have to do. There's a reason why you're doing it, right? It's so true. I love that. I get very excited about that, because I've seen the whole process, and it can be very successful, and it's more sustainable that way. So once you've reached that level of success, it's motivating. Hopefully it's motivating that you say, hey, we did it. We achieved our goals. Our investors are happy. Now they're going to invest more, because they know that we're going to do what we say we do. Win-win, win-win. Okay. And part of that is, does anybody else have any comments or questions on this?
I would just say, like, what would you tell someone who looks at this and gets incredibly overwhelmed? As an overthinker,
okay, you don't have to use this form.
Oh no, but I want to.
Okay.
I'm stressed about it, but I'm gonna do it.
But like, some advice for someone who,
keep it basic.
yeah,
Keep it simple.
Right.
Okay.
Into small parts, right? Because like, if you're a thinker, your employees may not be, right? That may be overwhelming for them to see that.
mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I'm a thinker and it's overwhelming for me.
So one of the things, one of your action items might be, you might be able to pull that out and it's a goal for somebody on your team.
Yeah,
So one of your how-tos of how you're gonna grow is building that third team, right?
okay,
But part of that is interviewing, blah, 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 blah. You might pull part of that out. They don't need to see all of this. They need to be in alignment and know why they're doing it, but you just give them that smaller piece. And I can't do what I need to do until you do this. So I'm relying on you and I know you can do this part of it. Keep it simple, but keep it transparent for why you're asking people to do certain things. Okay, great question. Yeah, and you don't have to use this form. This is just a guideline, but it works very well. And if you want this electronically, Alan has it, can share it with anybody. I'm happy to do that. Okay. And then method of tracking. Okay, so that comes in here too. So method of tracking is huge, right? And that was the next thing on here is how are you going to track your progress? Depending on what it is it revenue? Is it client satisfaction? You've got to have a way to know, are you on target? Are you making progress with the goal that you're working on? So whether it's a checklist, for me, hiring the new person in Greenville, I had a checklist. It was that simple. I wanted to get number 1 done by this date, number 2 by this date. I had to have her onboarded by February 1st. You know, it was just a simple checklist. If you're increasing sales, obviously you might have a line graph comparing this year's sales to last year's sales. It doesn't have to be difficult. Engineering world, there's a lot, you know, the Gantt charts keep people on track with their progress on different projects, things like that. But you have to measure your progress. And if you're not making the progress that you want to be making, go back and look at your steps. What do I need to change? Because I'm not making the progress I really need to make. So I might have to go back and tweak it. Questions on that? Because it's huge. Tracking your progress.
What does KPI mean?
Oh, okay. Sorry. That's my manufacturing world. KPI.
Key performance indicator.
There you go. Gosh, I went blank. Thank you, Alan. Yes. And how far, I mean, what's your cadence? Are you going to look at it weekly? Like I know in manufacturing, they do a daily, a 10-minute stand up before you start your shift. 10 minutes. This is what's going on. This is what we have to get done today. Blah, blah, blah. Some others, they might be monthly. So when you're having to report up the ladder to people, it might be a monthly KPI, key performance indicators. Thank you. Or it might be quarterly, you know, but that's okay. Whatever it is, it depends on what you're tracking and what your progress is and who you need to let know about it. Okay. Good question. Anything else on that? Awesome. We're getting there, guys. So then there's the accountability part. Who owns the goal? Okay, Samantha's, yours, you know, your example, you're setting the strategic for the entire team. So you own that part of it. But when you break this part out and give it to your individual team members, they own that. Ultimately, you're still responsible, but you don't want to be that micromanager who's looking over the shoulder and say, hey, did you get that done? Are you doing it? Right? You want your person to be accountable. And that empowers people. And in this day and age, with these younger generations coming into the workforce, that's what they want. They want the responsibility and they want to know that you are trusting them. If you look over their shoulders, they're gone. Okay. So who owns it? And how often will you review the progress with those people? You decide that. What is your comfort level? Because ultimately you are still responsible. Right? What happens if we miss a target date? You know, is it just going back and saying, well, we missed that target date because legit reason, it was out of your hands, it was somebody else, you know, whatever it is, that's okay. Go back and say, is it realistic? Was it realistic to say that I could hire somebody in a month? Probably not, especially when I don't live there. So if I missed that target date, it was my fault. It was unrealistic. Okay, so measurement and accountability are really big. Who owns the goal, and making sure that you let them know that they own that part of it. Okay, and so the last part, barrier removal, that was kind of on the front, is that obstacles. Okay, what are some obstacles that might come up, and how do we take care of it? Okay, what obstacles could prevent success? Because you want to go into it realistically too. Okay, so what decisions need to be made today in order to avoid some of these obstacles? And I know it's hard when I'm talking in vague terms, but I had a specific example. But you want to get rid of the barriers, and being realistic is that you are going to hit speed bumps. There are going to be obstacles that come up that you don't know about. Don't let it throw you off from achieving your goal. One of the things we talk about in our classes, one of the attributes of successful people is being positive, a positive mental attitude, and finding ways that things can be done instead of why they can't be done. Okay. And then so I wanted to wrap up just by challenging you guys, okay, is saying I commit to blank by blank. You know, when we talk about strategic growth and planning, it might not be this year-long goal that we're talking about. What is something that you're working on right now that would close the gap between where you are and where you want to be? Whether it's professionally, personally, what can you commit to? What can you make a goal for? And when do you want to have it accomplished by? Does anybody have one off the top of their head they feel comfortable sharing? Put you on the spot.
Okay, so right, the way that I think, so I decided I wanted to learn how to surf when I was 30. That was my goal for my 30s, learn how to surf. So I went and took a surf lesson in Costa Rica. And the guy said, you know, you've got to commit to the wave. So I can commit to a wave, but to commit to something specific by a certain date, I don't, right? Like, it's hard to switch to think that way. Like, I can commit to a problem that's colossal, but like, I'm going to do this one little thing by this date.
I'm like, okay, and I'll tell you, I love that you say that,
That's
honestly.
hard.
But if we do not put target dates, is it going to happen?
Maybe eventually.
If you do not, I promise you, I've been in this long enough. If you do not write it down, and you don't give it a date, not going to happen.
Well, and if you're somebody who doesn't hold yourself committed to something, then that's when you share it with someone else so they can do it for you. Because I cancel on myself 24/7.
Yeah.
Like, I am my last priority.
Yeah. And I say that in a good way, honestly, because what happens, I was one of those people. I carried everything around in my head. I said, you know, I just refinished tiling my foyer at my house. Do you know how long I've been talking about doing that? And somebody finally challenged me and said, Lois, did you write it down? And did you give yourself target dates? Once I did that, I was like, oh, okay. Now I have to get it done, because when it's in my head, I'll get to it sometime. I'll get to it. But other things pop up and are more important. So that's why I say that, is there's something that you truly want to accomplish, you have to write it down and come up with a date.
Share from the comment from the chat here. Do we commit to an action we are taking, or are we committing to the goal we want to achieve?
Yes.
I will say, I think, Scarlett, I feel like sometimes I do that where I'm like, my system is chaos, I'm sure. I have 4 notepads in front of my computer, and one is my to do today, one is my to do this week, this month, and to do sometimes. And if I don't consciously move things from my to do sometime to one of the others, it stays in the ether of eventual.
Someday.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there
So-
she's on there.
Yeah. So to answer that person, I wasn't trying to be flippant. I was saying, yes, depending on the commitment and what you're talking about. If it's a small thing like my retiling the foyer, I had to make it a goal. Because all the steps I had to do to retile, I had to write it down. But what I'm trying to get you to start thinking about is what are some of those priorities that you have? And some of them you don't have to make a goal planning sheet. If it's something that you can knock out today, by all means do it.
But these things too is, because you're saying too, keep in mind, it's about strategic goal and strategic growth,
Right.
right? And so I am also that person that I had to learn to do this, because I'd rather just kind of do what kind of comes there. But I also realize that if we don't have it in writing, we don't have this saying there, it goes down to the whole individual. Trying to get other people to align with that becomes more challenging if you don't have something that is framed like that in some capacities. And that structure seems to work, to be able to get it down to that individual, because you're trying to get the whole organization to think strategic growth or strategic vision or accomplishment.
Right. Right. And especially if it's something 3 years out or a year out or 3 years out, you have to have some kind of a framework and some kind of a plan. That's that strategic. If you it equals strategic growth, strategic planning, you have to have a plan. You have to. And this is a good way to start your plan.
Well, I did bring the whole year with me.
Look at you.
So, right? You just have to write it down.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I have a planner. I have a paper
So I'm
planner.
gonna buy you a planner, Scarlett. So on the calendar.
I have planners and stuff. I just like seeing the whole year. You can't see that on your telephone.
Yeah, I
I
do.
brought the whole year with me.
I have a paper planner I carry with me. Everything's
Me too.
on that. I have to, I'm very visual. I have to see it to be able to plan my day.
See, mine has to be openly accessible to everyone in my life because
Mm-hmm.
I like to consider myself a good communicator, but I'm not. And so I literally have a shared
Yeah.
spreadsheet so that so the girls know,
Mm-hmm.
that even though I'm not cleaning in the field with them, I am actively doing something else. So if they can't reach me, they know
Yeah.
where I am.
And a lot of people do that with their families. You got
Yeah.
kids and you got kids' activities and you put it all in one place, but then everybody knows. Got it where everybody can see it and everybody knows. So I know we're running out of time here. So just wanted to thank you all for being here today. Thank you for being engaged and for having conversation. I hope there were some things that you took away. If you want, please reach out to me. I'm happy to continue the conversation anytime. So just let me know how I can help you all. And Alan, thank you for having me today.
Thank you, and sorry to rush you here at the
That's
end.
okay.
I want to thank you on behalf of the chamber. We have for you a tumbler, and as a part of the Virginia 250th, we've created challenge coins that we're giving out to our speakers this year. So to commemorate that, thank you so much for being here. Thank you all for being here. One thing that got mentioned early on was the Business 101 series. I do want to say, if you go back to last year, you can watch and listen to our discussions with Angie, Miles, Regional Commission, and SBDC. This year, we're actually shifting that system a little bit more. The Business 101 is going to be a 3-part series covering Canva. We're calling it Canva from Basics to Beyond. If you attend all 3 sessions, you'll be going through and we'll be teaching you. And at the end, you'll get a certificate of completion showing that you have been trained through Canva and you're able to utilize those resources. So please come to that. There are virtual and in-person options for that. So
Is that on the chamber calendar?
it is. If you go to our website this year, we've actually separated things between programs and events. So go into programs. I think alphabetically it's the first one, but it's 3 separate dates in April, May, and June. Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for being here, and we hope to see you soon.